Hello everyone, this is RaySpace and welcome back to my Saturn mission testing in Kerbal Space Program 1.12 with Realism Overhaul. Considering my normally prolific output, you might have noticed that I haven't made many Kerbal Space Program videos in the past few days, and that is because I had surgery. It's just a hernia surgery, it's not huge, but it's still painful. And so that's what it takes to stop me from making KSP videos. I literally have to have surgery. So this will be a short video because I'm still in some pain, but I did have some thoughts over the course of my, well, so far recovery, and we will proceed with the missions picking up from where we did the mid-course corrections. And what we had in the previous video was a whole lot of boil off when I time warped onto Saturn, and we need to see if that recurs and if I need to do something with that. However, my main thought was that probably we're going to make some changes to the mission, but let's check up on how they are doing right now and then see what happens as I time warp. The main ship isn't in great shape. It's got 545 meters per second when it really needs 624.5 meters per second, but we would see how much it has after they use up some of the food, water, and oxygen, and also maybe we could use some of the RCS to do stuff. But I've got 1,994 locks in here, liquid oxygen, and we really need to keep that. That's the most important thing. But I would also like to keep our liquid hydrogen. Now, if we take a look at the boil off situation, it's saying 0. And, you know, considering the type of tanks we have, the radiators and the MLI layers, I really want it to be 0. But it is hydrogen, so it's tough, but it is 0 right now. And I want to make sure it stays 0, if that's what it's promising. One thing I thought about doing, which I've always been reluctant to do, but I'm very much seriously thinking about it now, is just carrying the propellant as water. The hydrogen and oxygen, we can just carry water. We've got a nuclear reactor in the back to do electrolysis. It needs a lot of power to do electrolysis, but with a nuclear reactor, you've basically got it made. We can just do electrolysis on the water and turn it into the hydrogen and oxygen when we actually need the propellant. Considering it's a many-year journey over to Saturn, we have plenty of time to turn the water into propellant, and we can do it when we get there. I think it's something like, I'll take a look at the actual number, but I think for 1 kilogram of hydrogen you need about 50 kilowatt hours or something like that. But our reactor is in the megawatt range, so it's not high megawatts. I think it's like 1 or 2, but yeah, I think we can manage the splitting of the water into hydrogen and oxygen so we don't have boil off. And then, of course, we could combine the hydrogen and oxygen into water, thus generating power, incidentally, if we wanted to do that too. We can't do it perfectly. The amount of power, by the way, that you get out of combining the hydrogen and oxygen is never as much as it takes to split it, of course, thermodynamics. But yeah, I think that would be an easier way to go, and we wouldn't have to worry about this boil off situation. So I'll probably come up with something like that. But for now, I would like to see whether time warping allows for the boil off to be consistent. Either if I'm not focused on it, in other words, we're time warping in the tracking station, or if I am focused on it. One way or another, hopefully we'll have it right. This is probably the part of the mission that has it most tight. Let's take a look at the others. So here's our Enceladus lander, and I've got here 16,427 locks, 17,342 hydrogen, and right now none of the tanks read any boil off as it's spinning around and around. We do have the radiators and of course the MLI layers, 100 MLI layers, but again, I'm worried about the boil off being consistent at all. If there's boil off, it should tell me. That's my basic rule. If it wants to boil off, it should tell me now so that I can plan for it. That is what I'm going for here. But again, we might go with the alternate method of dealing with all of this with the water. And this has a reactor on it as well because it needs to run the drilling units and the ISRU unit. So it's got plenty of power to split water as well, though having a separate water tank is annoying. Another thing that I thought about, because people had commented in the videos about various aspects of the mission, is that maybe we should go for Iapetus instead of Enceladus. So one person, sorry, I forgot who it was, commented that Iapetus, and I might vary my pronunciation of that a little bit because I think it's Iapetus, but I'll tend to say Iapetus. But anyway, the moon, the outer moon of Saturn, as far as the ones that we have in the game, does seem to have water. So somebody commented on that. It seems to, it's pretty convincing that it has water. I'm convinced. It's not as convincing as Enceladus because Enceladus is actually spewing it out constantly, but it's pretty good. The other problem that somebody noted was that there's a lot of radiation close into Saturn. It's nothing like Jupiter. Jupiter has like 1,000 times the radiation of Saturn. It's on a totally different level. But Saturn does have radiation that we need to worry about. So I would tend to want to go to Iapetus to avoid that radiation, and that might be a good thing, especially since Kerbalism is going to kill my Kerbals. So that's a thought. This might not be an Enceladus lander anymore. It might be a Iapetus lander, and I'll have to work out the numbers for that to make sure that it's okay with that. I haven't taken a look at how much it takes to land on Iapetus, but I don't think it's too much more. So anyway, right now I've got the numbers for it, and we'll check up on it after the time warp. Here, this mission just really doesn't have enough. 2,920 is still not going to be enough, I think. So I think the Titan lander, well, it might just need to capture using its own capability. Again, it says boil off loss is 0. I'm going to get its numbers just so that we have a reference. Alright, trying to time warp like this. We've got 14 years of clean water. That had also been an issue, that the water recycling wasn't working out quite right. Partly because it fluctuates, I think. Here, during time warp, you can see it frequently goes to 5 to 6 years. Now, apparently, we don't have control over the Titan lander anymore because of electric charge. Remember, it has a reactor. But clean water down to 325 days, according to that. See, no, that's not supposed to be how that works. I want to actually cross the SOI boundary and then go to it this time. Okay, well, water not as expected. Oxygen, though, held. We have the oxygen here, but none of the hydrogen. Hydrogen all boiled off. But every single unit of the oxygen is still with it. So I think that's the same result as we had previously. I'm going to load the save again from the mid-course correction and then see what happens when I actually follow it. It was noted that the analytic cooling is 0 watts. I don't know why, but it's always been 0 watts as far as I could see, and it would be, I guess, because there is no boil off right now. So yeah, but radiator cooling is on. Does say power radiated 17.54 kilowatts. I would consider that, you know, cooling. So we'll see. Anyway, I'll keep an eye on both tanks to see if some boil off pops up. Oh, but in this view, it does this producer of electric charge issue. Gosh darn it. Okay, I'm gonna try and turn on infinite electricity to see if that works for time warp. I don't know. No, it'll still stop it. But you know, this still says 14 years like this. How long exactly would it take me to time warp at this rate all the way to Saturn? Seems like 87.6 hours. So no, I'm not going to just time warp like this for 87 hours. That's for 6 years, 87 hours would be. Alright, so I'm in a bit of a bind here because time warping in a tracking station leads to wild boil off and a diminishment in the hydrogen, and also incorrect tracking of the water, which is sort of important, the water recycling in particular. If I time warp here, it's okay. We see no boil off, and we also see that the water is being tracked properly. It says 14 years, and it'll go down at about the right rate while we're here. The problem is I can't time warp past this step here. If I try, it says a producer of electric charge has incoherent behavior. And even if I try to get rid of that, there's a point up here where it won't want to time warp any faster, and it still takes a long time. So the result is that either I launch from scratch and use water and then split the water in order to get the hydrogen and oxygen, and I might end up doing that anyway, or I continue with this mission and we just add back in the hydrogen and water once we get to Saturn and work from there, see what other problems there might be, and then once we figure that out, we can relaunch the mission, perhaps with other changes. So that's where I'm at. I want to have permission to add the stuff back in, and I think it's pretty clear that it's just not keeping track of it right. I saw other comments saying Kerbalism has a bit of a problem with this, and it seems that way. I had done a similar mission with the Enceladus lander, just the Enceladus lander and the Titan lander, time warping all the way to Saturn, and without Kerbalism in, we didn't have any weird boil off there. We were able to conduct those missions correctly, really with very tight margins also. So I would like to have the same sort of tracking here, but I don't know what Kerbalism is going to do with us. So as far as removing Kerbalism is concerned as an option, that's a little bit sad because then we can't get the proper tracking of the radiation. It's not like TAC Life Support was doing a great job with the recycler either. So yeah, TAC Life Support was not keeping track of the water recycler properly. Then again, it seems like that's just not going to happen either way. So with me still in recovery, I have laid out my options, and I'll get your opinions from other interested parties. But that's just an update as far as my thinking is concerned regarding this mission. And I will ponder other possibilities, but I am considering the Iapetus option and also the water option. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.